for me in the survey was this issue that clearly women with children were struggling a lot, and that's not a surprise. And we've heard quite a bit about that, but I'm not hearing about many solutions. And then there's a second part to that, which I'm going to try to sneak in from the floor, which is that the opportunities for women to conduct research in the MENA remain a challenge. Particularly, you sometimes need male permission to do certain things, and sort of how could we support women researchers, particularly in the MENA? So twofold, I guess. What are the answers to the many women who are struggling with childcare issues? And is there a way to support female researchers more in MENA?
Yeah, let's want to start by talking about the survey, and I can just build on what we found in the survey.
Sure. So we showed one graph that showed the number of hours devoted to research by those respondents who had children, and by gender as well. And from that figure, you can see, of course, women with children had reported the biggest, or sort of were the highest proportion, reporting a decrease in the number of hours, followed by males with kids, followed by females with no kids, and finally, the smallest proportion were male academics with no children. But we also saw this gender difference in the service workload, that it was women, both those with kids and without kids, female faculty, that reported, that were the largest reporters of having an increase in a service workload, either because of advising or administrative meetings. And in the US in particular, this was compounded over the summer for female faculty of color as a result of the widespread protest against police brutality. And a number of universities reinitiated diversity and inclusion initiatives. So a lot of faculty did report on those. There was two things that increased the workload. It was the pandemic, but then also the issues of race and racial injustice in the United States.
So switching to the MENA region, and the question specifically about the gender and women in the region. So we all know that not just in the US and the West, it's that academia is a very gendered institution that is based on male authority and standards, male standards of success. So we all struggle with this, not just it's not a Middle East issue here in the US as well. Institutions, academic institutions, are just so gendered, and no matter how you try to say it nicely, they are very gendered. So males are the ones who are putting policies. They're the one who are promoted way. So they outnumber women. So women until now, after all these years, even in the US, we represent about 30% only of faculty. So even within this 30%, those who get promoted and get the full professor, it keeps on going lower and lower and lower. So you see 10% full professors from 30. So there we have a leaky pipeline where women don't make it to full tenure. And as a result, there are less women in leadership position within these institutions. So the whole institutional culture and the whole institution structure is pretty gendered. So it is a challenge for women in the West, and it's compounded in the Middle East, given also the cultural and the stigma associated with women in leadership positions, and also in higher in positions in higher education. So this is a really a huge challenge. We have a piece that's going to come out hopefully soon on how these institutions are gendered and ways to remedy these gender structures. So as I just mentioned a little bit ago, there must be strict institutional and very gender sensitive institutional measures that would remedy these issues. And again, and I really, really hope more and more here in the West and in the US, and so you see more awareness because women are pushing with female faculty, although they're smaller numbers, but they're pushing very hard for recognition and for more gender sensitive policies when it comes to childcare, child support, tenure extensions, and things like that. I really hope that in the Middle East as well, would see this soon, that women would come together, and especially women in academia, and push harder for more egalitarian and more gender sensitive policies within their institutions that would allow them to excel and exceed on par of their male counterparts. And it's really, really sad because you walk into any higher education institution in the Middle East right now, and you see how females are outnumbering males in most of these universities and colleges. But at the same time, when you look at the composition of the leadership and the faculty and the leadership of these universities, you find very, very few women. So the disparity is so glaring, and I think we must just be very, very aware of these issues to be able to find the right remedies for them.
Gail, did you want to add anything to that or not?
Just, I think going back to the earlier question and the second part of this this question, I mean, I think there is an opportunity to be sincere in building partnerships and lasting partnerships, real partnerships with scholars in the region, so that we can amplify their voices. And and unfortunately, for political science and the MENA research, most of it is sort of what is important and what is not comes from a handful of prominent universities in the West. And it would be it's a real opportunity now for us to co-author. Of course, not, what Marwa said is really important, not to ask people to go out in unsafe conditions and conduct our research for us, but to think about, ways that we can build partnerships and collaborate with scholars in the region in a way that we haven't done to a great extent in the past.
Right, exactly. I mean, I was interested in that point before, if there wasn't ways to build genuine partnerships. I mean, I used to cover AIDS research, and they would talk about safari science, where people would swoop in and take people's data and come back out.
Maybe hire an RA, and then
exactly.
I think especially the gendered aspect, where this as even as a foreign woman, you face some constraints, but another as a researcher in the MENA, but in some cases you're exempt from some of the gendered norms that would inhibit research from scholars, or from female scholars in the region, because you're an outsider.
Right. Yeah, I just wonder if there isn't some way to have, maybe there already are, principles or structures or recommendations for kind of building true, kind of more true partnerships.
And collaborating and co-authoring, and
right, exactly.
And that's a way to amplify voices from the region, is to
exactly
get published in some of the journals out of Western universities and presses.
Right. I've launched the poll. It's just a very easy, short poll that our viewers can go in and answer if they'd like, to give us some feedback about their situation, and also how helpful they're finding this presentation. I'm going to ask a slightly different